What about the impact, Peter, of India on this? It has a population that has swelled to 1.4 billion.
India is going to be fine. In a post-China world, they're going to have to do the same thing that we're going to have to do. They're going to have to increase their industrial plant to build their own stuff. They have the capacity to do that. You could argue that their labor force is more differentiated. They can be good at multiple things at the same time, whereas we usually just do the design and the high end. And so they can probably do it with a lot less stress. But they have no partners. They don't border a country that they like or that likes them. And then they're ringed by a series of mountains and deserts and jungles. So they can't really integrate with anyone. India is India. It's an Indian story. It's not a regional story. It's not a global story. That doesn't make it bad. It just makes them alone. The question then, of course, is whether or not the flow will continue. It doesn't take a lot of international connections to get a steady trickle of skilled Indians going to the rest of the world. And if I'm right about the general global breakdown that's in front of us, they're going to be the top 1/10% of Indians, which is still 1.5 million people, that are going to try to find greener pastures somewhere else with a higher standard of living. The question is, will New Delhi ever do anything to stop that? Doesn't seem to be part of the program at the moment. I think we are going to have exactly that sort of burst of innovation, but a few things to keep in mind. Number one, birth rates in the advanced world, including the US, have been dropping for decades. We have fewer people to do it with. For the last 30 years, we've become used to capital being abundant and cheap because the baby boomers were in their advanced adulthood, but they hadn't retired yet. They were the richest they'd ever been. Half of them are now retired, so capital costs are higher. The Chinese have expanded their industrial plant to make all the stuff we need. We're gonna have to rebuild that, competing for the access to the capital and the labor. And then finally, even if everything that you say goes down, and I think it will, you don't do it in a day. Just building the industrial plant is a 5-year process minimum. And developing the new technologies to allow us to do these things better and with less money and less labor first requires some of that labor and some of that money. So we're trying to do, to be perfectly blunt, too many things at the same time. We'll get there, but it's not going to be as fast as it needs to be to avoid the disruption.
We have such resources that we can offer the world, and if we're short of labor, print 1 million, 10 million, 20 million green cards and go anywhere in the world and people will volunteer to come here immediately.
We can, we will. It's just going to take a few years. And in that time, the rest of the world is going to slide. As for the green cards, that's a political question. And we go through phases in the United States where we're open and phases when we're closed. We're clearly in a closed one right now. And what we're doing is we're kind of waiting for organized labor to figure out where they're going to fall. One of the many impacts of the Trump administration is that Donald Trump was able to lure union voters away from the Democratic Party, which they had been part of since our last party reshuffle. And they're basically swing voters right now. And the issue that they're most passionate about is immigration, because they see it as competing for their jobs. So neither the Democrats nor the Republicans want to do anything with immigration at the moment until such time as they know where unions are going to land on the political spectrum. Not going to happen in the next 2 years, most likely.
That's very interesting. I have to declare.
In the last 20 years, you've absolutely been right. We've seen union membership declining because the economic model had moved on. But if we're going to build out a massive industrial plant, those are almost entirely blue-collar jobs. So we need more blue-collar workers than we have right now, and that gives the unions the opportunity of a lifetime in terms of establishing a higher degree of political power. They're not going anywhere.